ITV Lunchtime News.
It is billed as a bid to break us out of the cycle of gloom. After years of anemic growth, Jeremy Hunt has made clear his budget today will be designed to get the UK moving again. As he made his way to the Commons this morning, he'd already effectively announced measures on childcare and pension reform. But now it is make or break time for this still relatively new Chancellor. His party languishes in the polls, his country at the bottom of the growth tables of leading nations. So what can he do about it? Anushka will be here in the studio to take us through what the Chancellor has to say. Joel will do some rapid mental arithmetic to tell us what it all means. And Robert will, of course, join us from Westminster, where he's just popped up. It is a budget, we are told, with big ambitions, but can it possibly match its advance billing?
This is ITV News, the Chancellor's Budget Special with Tom Bradby.
Good afternoon. The basic truth about today's budget is that we go into it as a nation with many more problems than we'd ideally like. All political parties agree on that. We are living through a cost of living crisis, of course, a fact none of you will need reminding of. And in this, we are no different from the other leading economies of the world. But we have longer-term problems too. Ever since the colossal financial crash of 2007-8, we've had a real problem with growth, which of course means less money coming in and therefore less to spend on public services or tax cuts. The pandemic was another blow, but we've also had Brexit, which so far has not provided the benefits promised, though its supporters insist it is still early days. So in short, today is really, really important. How can we grow faster? The Chancellor believes he has some answers. This is the scene in the Commons where Prime Minister's Questions is well underway, and we will take you there as soon as the Chancellor gets to his feet. But first, let's take a look at what we can expect, or what we think we can expect. Anushka is here and will be taking us through what the Chancellor has in that red box. Anushka, just for a radical change, it feels like we already know quite a lot of it already.
Yeah, we know that Jeremy Hunt is calling this his budget for growth, including getting people back into work. And he has a little help. The magic money tree has conveniently thrown up an additional £30 billion, according to the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Now, that's because of falling wholesale energy prices, among other factors. Now, sources insist that the Chancellor isn't going to spend it all at once for two key reasons. In the longer term, debt. The government's primary fiscal rule is to get debt falling by 2027, and you can see we're going the opposite way right now. In the short term, it is that government mantra of inflation. The aim to halve that rate is why Treasury folk tell me Jeremy Hunt will try to be restrained when it comes to, for example, public sector pay, with no new money expected today. But inflation is falling, as you can see, and we will get a new forecast that will feed into ongoing talks with health unions, so there could be more money at some point. Now, Paul Johnson of the IFS says the government shouldn't use inflation as an excuse. He says it's all about choices. After all, we are expecting a fair bit of spending today, £6 billion on freezing fuel duty. £4 billion on expanding free childcare to 1- and 2-year-olds, keeping the energy price guarantee until June, and a cut to pension tax for the wealthy to try to discourage early retirement. But when it comes to other big tax cuts, the inflation mantra is back. Jeremy Hunt will urge many Tory MPs to be patient and is expected to raise corporation tax from 19% to 25%, but with really big new allowances to boost investment. And then one last bit that could be quite controversial, tougher benefit sanctions to push people back into work. So a budget with some carrot, but plenty of stick.
OK, Anushka, let's see. For now, thank you very much indeed. Now, you might wonder, why does so much of a budget get leaked? Well, partly to allow the government to set the narrative, and partly because you have a lot of... You could really argue this is the most consequential political day for all of us in a year. There are many measures the government wants to make sure each of those has their place in the sun, I suppose you would say. But let's go to Robert at Westminster. Robert, how will you be looking at today? What are you looking out for? What do you expect?
Well, actually, as you already said, Tom, it is all about Britain's growth prospects, because if we can't grow, then there are not enough tax revenues to fund the public services that we feel we deserve, and living standards can't rise. Now, there is a bit of a following wind compared to where we were in November when it comes to growth. Interest rates are probably rising slightly less around the world than we feared just a few months ago, partly because of that banking crisis in America, and partly because around the world probably the inflation pressures aren't quite as bad as they were. And of course, we've seen a significant reduction in energy prices. But there have been forces moving in the other direction, such as people dropping out of the labour force. So there are again slightly better figures on that announced yesterday. But as I say, I do expect this Chancellor to frame his budget all about measures to boost growth, and there are essentially two buckets of measures. One is about encouraging businesses to invest. The most important thing in that area will be what are known as 100% capital allowances, and that allows companies, if they invest in plant and machinery and possibly in other things as well, to reduce their taxable revenue by that amount, which means they pay less tax. That's really important at a time when the corporation tax is going up from 19% to 25%. And then there's a whole series of measures to try and get people back into work, and as Anushka has already said, the most eye-catching and expensive of those is the £4 billion he's allocating to giving 30 hours of free childcare to parents with kids of 9 months to 2 years old.
OK, Robert, thank you very much indeed. Well, of course, that childcare announcement for many people, for many of you watching at home, may be very, very consequential indeed. We'll wait and see in the budget itself whether there are other equally consequential measures. Joel, can I just ask you to, obviously we have a budget every year, the public finance picture has changed, the growth picture hasn't always changed that much. What are you looking for today?
Well, I think there are two issues, Tom. Big picture and then the micro today. I mean, as Anushka was setting out, we're expecting a series of announcements. The Chancellor's going to be spending billions of pounds. The question is, where is he getting the money from? Is he going to be raising it elsewhere, cutting spending elsewhere? Is this simply down to an improvement in the public finances? We know, don't we, that back in November, the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, the government's own forecaster, said there was going to be a recession. Well, hasn't happened yet, but economists still expect the economy to contract here in the UK this year. We've seen inflation come down. It's expected to fall further and really quite rapidly, but it remains very, very high. Millions of people, Tom, in this country really do need support, and it's probably going to be the end of the year before they start to feel better off again. So we're going to be looking at all of that, how the outlook for the economy has changed. But the big picture here, which you alluded to, is that for so long, really, for at least 15 years, our prospects have looked poorer. The performance of the UK economy has been really, really weak. Now, all advanced economies since the financial crisis in 2007, 2008 have really struggled for growth. But the UK since 2016 has looked like a little bit of an outlier. We've gone from being one of the top performing G7 countries to one of the weakest. That's what the Chancellor wants to fix today.
OK, that is the big question. We'll have plenty more from Joel and Robert and Anushka as we analyse what the Chancellor says. And of course, we'll have the budget itself. It's just a matter of minutes away. You can see them there at Prime Minister's questions in the comments. So do come back after this very short break.
Card accepted. Card accepted.
Feel the power to lower prices with Tesco Club Card.
Looking back at old camera phones, I'd look really dark, really washed out. Emma looks great. I look dreadful. You can only see me teeth. When I take a photo using this phone, it's more true to life. It's what we look like. I'm AJ, and I've got a Google Pixel.
Filippo Berio, 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 olive oil.
150 years of perfection, of dedication, of the highest possible standards. All started with one man, Filippo Berio. Filippo Berio. His signature, our promise.
There's more to love at Matalan.
When times are tough, what really matters? Here's to familiar faces, weekly rituals, and old jokes. Here's to simple pleasures like kitchen discos, tea time together, and warm cuddles at the end of long days. Whatever we're facing, it's these moments together that help bring us back to what really matters. McCain, we are family.
What would you say this Mother's Day?
Hello, happy Mother's Day. I hope you had the best day.
I just wanted to send you these flowers just to tell you I love you. Please see them as an extension of my love.
We cannot wait to see you really soon. Love you.
This Mother's Day, express how much she means to you with Prestige Flowers and send your free personalised video message with every bouquet.
Happy Mother's Day. Love you. Mwah.
Prestige Flowers. Flowers for the extraordinary.
Baby Bell, 100% real cheese, high in calcium, rich in protein. Coming soon to a lunchbox near you. Baby Bell, join the goodness. And now, you can become a comic relief hero. Buy a pack of Baby Bell and we'll donate 5p to Comic Relief.
Welcome back to ITV's special coverage of the Chancellor's budget. We are just waiting for Jeremy Hunt to take to his feet. As you can see, there is a packed chamber for the House of Commons' Prime Minister's question time, and it's always packed for the Chancellor's budget as well. And we will go there as soon as Jeremy Hunt is on his feet. We have no idea, of course, how long he will speak for. As soon as he sits down, Keir Starmer will be on his feet to give a response. Of course, the Leader of the Opposition doesn't get to know what's in the Chancellor's budget, so it's the ultimate test of thinking on your feet. Let's go to Robert. So much of it's leaked. That's pretty standard in recent years for the reasons we outlined earlier. It's also been pretty standard for the Chancellor to have a bit of a rabbit out the hat at the end, a surprise. I guess you don't know what that is, but what are you particularly looking out for, and how many surprises do you think there are likely to be?
So, look, I'm told, Tom, there is no very significant rabbit. I mean, obviously, the childcare stuff that was briefed out last night it's big, £4 billion, as I say. I suppose, if I'm honest, Tom, what I'm mostly interested in is the small print. So take the childcare policy, for example. There are plenty of people who say that the childcare that's currently being provided to those with older children, 3 and 4 year olds, actually has a toxic impact on the system because it pays childcare as a rate that many say means that the businesses that run childcare can't make a decent profit. And therefore, at the moment, what they do is they charge parents of older kids younger kids, the 1 year olds and the 2 year olds we were talking about, more, and that sort of subsidises the system. So there are some people who are saying, well, if they simply pay child carers at the rate that they're currently paying them, a load of businesses will just go to the wall. So one of the things we want to know is, what rate will the government mandate for paying child carers? The other issue around all of this is, where are these child carers? You talk to any parent, they say they just aren't enough of them around. So one of the things that the Chancellor hopes is that this policy will be seen by the Office for Budget Responsibility as bringing people back into the workforce and accelerating the growth rate, but that won't happen if there aren't child carers to provide the childcare. So there's all sorts of detail of that sort that is absolutely vital. Then there's a whole swathe of things that he's announcing on universal credit designed to, again, persuade more people to get back into the workforce. But again, the detail will tell us whether this is sort of brutal coercion or sensible encouragement. So in the end, for me, it's really the nitty-gritty that counts as much as the sort of big picture, headline-grabbing announcements.
OK, well, Robert, thank you very much indeed. We're looking at the House of Commons chamber there. The Speaker has just been swapped for the Deputy Speaker. The Deputy Speaker, by tradition, hosts the debate that takes place once the Chancellor is off his feet. As you see, that we're probably only seconds away from Jeremy Hunt getting up to talk. It's always interesting when you're planning a budget programme. As I said earlier, you've got no idea how long the Chancellor is going to be on his feet for, and it does vary a great deal. So she's going through a preamble here, and she will invite Jeremy Hunt to speak any moment now. I'm tempted to bring Joel in here to point out that one of the other things we're looking for, one of the things that doesn't get leaked in the budget, is of course the public finance figures, the growth figures, all this stuff we're talking about, which is critically important.
Yeah, absolutely, because obviously it shapes and forms the decisions that he can take and the flexibility that he's got, Tom. He's clearly got some things that...
OK, Joel, I'm going to rudely interrupt you because we go... Mr. Hunt is on his feet.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in the face of enormous challenges, I report today on a British economy which is proving the doubters wrong. In the autumn, we took difficult decisions to deliver stability and sound money. Since mid-October, 10-year gilt rates have fallen, debt servicing costs are down, mortgage rates are lower, and inflation has peaked. The International Monetary Fund says our approach means the UK economy is on the right track. Yeah. But we remain vigilant and will not hesitate to take whatever steps are necessary for economic stability. Today, the Office for Budget Responsibility forecasts that because of changing international factors and the measures I take, the UK will not now enter a technical recession this year. Yeah. They forecast we will meet the Prime Minister's priorities to halve inflation, reduce debt, and get the economy growing. Yeah. We are following the plan, and the plan is working. Yeah. But that's not all we've done. In the face of a cost of living crisis, we have demonstrated our values by protecting struggling families with a £2,500 energy price guarantee, one-off support, and the uprating of benefits with inflation. Taken together, these measures are worth £94 billion over this year and next, one of the largest support packages in Europe. That averages, Madam Deputy Speaker, over £3,300 of cost of living help for every household in the country. Today, we deliver the next part of our plan, a budget for growth. Not just the growth that comes when you emerge from a downturn, but long-term, sustainable, healthy growth that pays for our NHS and schools, finds jobs for young people and provides a safety net for older people, all whilst making our country one of the most prosperous in the world. Prosperity with a purpose, and that is why growth is one of the Prime Minister's 5 priorities for our country. I deliver that today by removing obstacles that stop businesses investing, by tackling labour shortages that stop them recruiting, by breaking down barriers that stop people working, and by harnessing British ingenuity to make us a science and technology superpower. Yeah. I start with the forecasts produced by Richard Hughes and his team at the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, who I thank for their diligent work. They have looked in detail at the Prime Minister's economic priorities. The first of those is to halve inflation. Inflation destroys the value of hard-earned pay, deters investment and foments industrial strife. This government remains steadfast in its support for the Independent Monetary Policy Committee at the Bank of England as it takes action to return inflation to the 2% target. Despite continuing global instability, the OBR report today that inflation in the UK will fall from 10.7% in the final quarter of last year to 2.9% by the end of 2023. That is more than halving inflation. High inflation, Madam Deputy Speaker, is the root cause of the strikes we've seen in recent months. We will continue to work hard to settle those disputes, but only in a way that does not fuel inflation. Part of the fall in inflation predicted by the OBR happens because of additional measures I take today. Firstly, I recognise that even though wholesale energy prices have been falling, there is still enormous pressure on family finances. Some people remain in real distress, and we should always stand ready to help when we can. So after listening to representations from Martin Lewis and other experts, I today confirm that the energy price guarantee will remain at £2,500 for the next 3 months. This means the £2,500 cap for the typical household will remain in place when energy prices remain high ahead of an expected fall in prices from July. This measure will save the average family a further £160 on top of the energy support measures already announced. The second measure concerns over 4 million households on prepayment meters. They're often the poorest households, but they currently pay more than comparable customers on direct debit. Ofgem has already agreed with suppliers a temporary suspension to forced installations of prepayment meters, but today I go further and confirm we will bring their charges in line with comparable direct debit charges. Under a Conservative government, the energy premium paid by our poorest customers, our poorest households, is coming to an end. Next, I have listened to representations from the honourable members for East Devon, North Cornwall, Combe Valley and Central Suffolk and North Ipswich about the risk to community facilities, especially swimming pools, caused by high costs. When times are tough, such facilities matter even more. So today I am providing a £63 million fund.
Order! We want to hear what the Chancellor of the Exchequer is actually saying. Enough. Chancellor.
Today I am providing a £63 million fund to keep our public leisure centres and pools afloat. I have also heard from my right honourable friend, the Charities Minister, and his Secretary of State about the brilliant work third sector organisations are doing to help people struggling in tough times. They can often reach people in need that central or local government cannot. So I will give his department £100 million to support thousands of local charities and community organisations do their fantastic work. I also note the personal courage of one of my predecessors, my right honourable friend from Bromsgrove, in talking about the tragedy of suicide and the importance of preventing it. We already invest a lot in this area, but I will assign an extra £10 million over the next 2 years, nearly £1 million for every year that he's been in Parliament, to help the voluntary sector play an even bigger role in stopping families experiencing that intolerable heartache. My penultimate cost of living measure concerns one of our other most treasured community institutions, the Great British Pub. In December, I extended the alcohol duty freeze until the 1st of August, after which duties will go up in line with inflation in the usual way. But today I will do something that was not possible when we were in the EU and significantly increase the generosity of draft relief so that from the 1st of August, the duty on draft products in pubs will be up to 11 pence lower than the duty in supermarkets. It's a differential a Conservative government will maintain as part of a new Brexit pubs guarantee. Madam Deputy Speaker, British ale is warm, but the duty on a pint is frozen. And even better, thanks to the Windsor framework negotiated by my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, that change will now apply to every pub in Northern Ireland. And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've heard the representations from the Honourable Member for Stoke-on-Trent North, my right honourable friend for Witham, and my right honourable friend from South Thanet and the Sun newspaper about the impact on motorists of the planned 11 pence rise in fuel duty. I noticed the party opposite call for a freeze on this duty. Somehow they forgot to tell the British people they have voted against every single fuel duty freeze for the last 12 years. Because inflation remains high, I have decided now is not the right time to uprate fuel duty with inflation or increase the duty. So here's what I'm going to do for a further 12 months. I'm going to maintain the 5p cut and I'm going to freeze fuel duty too. That saves the average driver £100 next year and around £200 since the 5p cut was introduced. Our energy price guarantee, fuel duty and duty on a pint all frozen in today's budget. That doesn't just help families, it helps the economy too, because their combined impact reduces CPI inflation by nearly 0.75% this year, lowering inflation when it is particularly high. I now turn to the Prime Minister's second priority, which is to reduce debt. Here too, our plan is on track. Underlying debt is forecast to be 92.4% of GDP next year, then 97.3%, 94.6%, 94.8%, before falling to 94.6% in 27-28. We are meeting the debt priority. And with a buffer of £6.5 billion, it means we are meeting our fiscal rule to have debt falling as a percentage of GDP by the 5th year of the forecast. As a proportion of GDP, our debt remains lower than the USA, Canada, France, Italy and Japan. And because of the decisions I take today and the improved outlook for public finances, underlying debt in 5 years' time is now forecast to be nearly 3 percentage points of GDP lower than it was in the autumn. That means more money for our public services and a lower burden for future generations, deeply held Conservative values which we put into practice today. At the autumn statement, I also announced that public sector net borrowing must be below 3% of GDP over the same period. The OBR confirmed today that we're meeting that rule with a buffer of £39.2 billion. In fact, our deficit falls in every single year of the forecast, with borrowing falling from 5.1% of GDP in 23-24 to 3.2% to 2.8% to 2.2% and 1.7% in 27-28. Even better, in the final 2 years of the forecast, our current budget is in surplus, meaning we only borrow for investment and not for day-to-day spending. Day-to-day departmental spending will grow at 1% a year on average in real terms after 24-25 until the end of the forecast period. Capital plans are maintained at the same level set at the autumn statement. We will uprate tobacco duty and we will freeze the gross gaming duty yield bands. We're also maintaining the starting rate for savings and ISA subscription limits, and we'll bring forward a range of measures to tackle promoters of tax avoidance schemes. Madam Deputy Speaker, taken together, today's measures lead to a slightly lower overall tax burden for the rest of the Parliament compared to the OBR's autumn forecast. Other parties run out of money, but a Conservative government is reducing borrowing and improving our public By doing so, we are on track to halve inflation, get debt falling, and grow our economy, which I turn to next. Growth, Madam Deputy Speaker, is the Prime Minister's third priority and the focus of today's budget. "13 years ago, we inherited an economy that had crashed. But since they might want to listen to this, because since 2010, we've grown more than major countries like France, Italy or Japan, about the same as Europe's largest economy, Germany. We've halved unemployment, we've cut inequality, we've reduced the number of workless households by 1 million. For the first time ever, because of rises in tax thresholds made by successive Conservative chancellors, people in our country can earn £1,000 a month without paying a penny of tax or national insurance. The party opposite opposed those tax reductions, but they have helped lift 2 million people out of absolute poverty after housing costs, including 400,000 pensioners and 500,000 children. That averages 80 pensioners and 100 children lifted out of poverty for every single day we've been in office. And today we face the future with extraordinary potential. The World Bank said that of all big European countries, we are the best place to do business. Global chief executives say that apart from America and China, we are the best country to invest in. We became the second country in the world to have a stock of foreign direct investment worth $2 trillion. And London has just pipped New York and 53 other global cities to be the best place in the world for female entrepreneurs. Declinists are wrong about our country for another reason, which is our strength in new industries that will shape this century. Over the last 13 years, under Conservative leadership, we have become the world's third trillion-dollar tech economy after the US and China. We've built the largest life sciences sector in Europe, producing a COVID vaccine that saved 6 million lives and a treatment that saved 1 million more. Our film and TV industry has become Europe's largest, with our creative industries growing at twice the rate of the economy. Our advanced manufacturing industries produce around half the world's large civil aircraft wings. And thanks to a clean energy miracle, we have become a world leader in offshore wind. Other parties talk about a green energy revolution. So I gently remind them that nearly 90% of our solar power was installed in the last 13 years, showing it's the Conservatives who fix the roof when the sun is shining. Now, let's turn to what the OBR say about our growth prospects. In November, they expected that the UK economy would enter recession in 2022 and contract by 1.4% in 23. That left many families feeling concerned about the future. But today, the OBR forecast we will not enter a recession at all this year, with a contraction of just 0.2%. And after this year, the UK economy will grow in every single year of the forecast period by 1.8% in 24, 2.5%, 2.1% and 1.9% in 27. They also expect the unemployment rate to rise by less than 1 percentage point to 4.4%, with 170,000 fewer people out of work compared to their autumn forecast. Madam Deputy Speaker, that return to growth has direct consequences for our role on the global stage. I am proud that we are giving the brave people of Ukraine more military support than anyone else in Europe. On Monday, we were able to go even further, with my right honourable friend announcing a £5 billion package of funding for the Ministry of Defence, an additional £2 billion next year and £3 billion the year after. Today, following representations from our persuasive Defence Secretary, I confirm that we will add a total of £11 billion to our defence budget over the next 5 years, and it will be nearly 2.25% of GDP by 2025. We were the first large European country to commit to 2% of GDP for defence, and we will now raise that to 2.5% as soon as fiscal and economic circumstances allow. And following representations from the equally persuasive Minister for Veterans Affairs, I am today also increasing support for our brave ex-servicemen and women. We will provide a package worth over £30 million to increase the capacity of the Office for Veterans Affairs, support veterans with injuries returning from their service, and increase the availability of veteran housing. But to be Europe's biggest defender of democracy, we must build Europe's most dynamic economy. That means tackling our long-standing productivity issues, including two in particular which I address today: lower business investment and higher economic inactivity than other countries. Too often, companies struggle to recruit, and even when they do, output per employee is lower. So today I set out the 4 pillars of our industrial strategy to address these issues. Colleagues will know from my Bloomberg speech, they all conveniently start with the letter E: enterprise, employment, education, and everywhere. I start, Madam Deputy Speaker, with everywhere. Our measures, well, they may not want to level up growth across the United Kingdom, but we do. This government was elected on a mandate to level up. We have already allocated nearly £4 billion in over 200 projects across the country through the first 2 rounds of the Levelling Up Fund. A third round will follow. Since we started focusing on levelling up, 70% of the growth in salaried jobs has come from outside London and the South East. And today we take further steps. Canary Wharf and the Liverpool Docks were 2 outstanding regeneration projects that happened under a previous Conservative government. I pay tribute to Lord Heseltine for making them happen because they transformed the lives of thousands of people. They showed what's possible when entrepreneurs, government and local communities come together. So today I announce that we will deliver 12 new investment zones, 12 potential Canary Wharfs. In England, we've identified the following areas as having the potential to host one: West Midlands, Greater Manchester, the North East, South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, East Midlands, Teesside, and once again Liverpool. There will also be at least one in each of Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. To be chosen, each area must identify a location where they can offer a bold and imaginative partnership between local government and a university or research institute in a way that catalyses new innovation clusters. If the application is successful, they'll have access to £80 million of support for a range of interventions, including skills, infrastructure, tax reliefs, and business rates retention. Working together with our formidable Levelling Up Secretary, I also want to give some further support to levelling up areas under the E of everywhere. First, I will invest over £200 million in high-quality local regeneration projects across England, including the regeneration of Tipton Town Centre and the Marsden New Mills redevelopment scheme. I'm also announcing a further £161 million for regeneration projects in mayoral combined authorities and the Greater London Authority, and I will make over £400 million available for new levelling up partnerships in areas that include Redcar and Cleveland, Blackburn, Oldham, Rochdale, Mansfield, South Tyneside and Bassetlaw. Having listened to the case for better local transport infrastructure from many honourable members, I can announce a second round of the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlements, allocating £8.8 billion over the next 5-year funding period. And following a wet, then cold winter, I have also received particularly strong representations from my honourable friends from North Devon, South West Devon and Newton Abbot, as well as Councillor Peter Martin from my own constituency, about the curse of potholes. The spending review allocated £500 million every year to the Potholes Fund, but today I have decided to increase that fund by a further £200 million next year to help local communities tackle this problem. For Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, this budget delivers not only a new investment zone, but an additional £320 million for the Scottish Government, £180 million for the Welsh Government, and £130 million for the Northern Ireland Executive as a result of Barnett's consequentials. On top of which in Scotland, I can announce up to £8.6 million of targeted funding for the Edinburgh Festivals, as well as £1.5 million funding to repair the Clodagh Bridge. I will provide £20 million of funding for the Welsh Government to restore the Holyhead Breakwater, and in Northern Ireland I'm allocating up to £3 million to extend the Tackling Paramilitarism programme and up to £40 million to extend further and higher education participation. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, for levelling up to truly succeed, we need to unleash the civic entrepreneurship that's only possible when elected local leaders are able to fund and deliver solutions to their own challenges. That means giving them responsibility for local economic growth and the benefit from the upside when it happens. So this government will consult on transferring responsibilities for local economic development from local enterprise partnerships to local authorities from April 24. I will also boost mayors' financial autonomy by agreeing multi-year single settlements for the West Midlands and Greater Combined Manchester Authority in the next spending review, something I intend to roll out for all mayoral areas over time. I've also agreed a new long-term commitment so that they can retain 100% of their business rates, something I also hope to expand to other areas. Investment zones, regeneration projects, levelling up partnerships, local transport infrastructure and business rates retention, more control for local communities over their economic destiny, so we will level up wealth and opportunity everywhere. Yeah. Today's priority is the Prime Minister's promise to grow the economy. We've talked about making that growth happen everywhere, so I now move on to my second E, enterprise. We need to be, well, this has never been something of interest to the Labour Party, but for Conservatives, we won't rest until we are Europe's most dynamic enterprise economy. And under a Conservative government, that is exactly what's been happening. Since 2010, we have 1 million more businesses in the UK, a bigger increase than Germany, France or Italy. But I want another million and another million after that. So today I bring forward enterprise measures in these 3 areas to lower business taxes, reduce energy costs and support our growth industries. So let's start with business taxation. Conservatives know the importance of a competitive tax regime. We already have lower levels of business taxation than France, Germany, Italy or Japan. But I want us to have the most pro-business, pro-enterprise tax regime anywhere. Even after the corporation tax rise this April, we will have the lowest headline rate in the G7, lower than any period under the last Labour government. Only 10% of companies will pay the full 25% rate. But even at 19%, our corporation tax did not incentivise investment as effectively as countries with higher headline rates. The result is less capital investment and lower productivity than countries like France and Germany. We've already taken measures to address this. For larger business, we've had the super deduction, introduced by my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, which ends this month. For smaller businesses, we've increased the annual investment allowance to £1 million, meaning 99% of all businesses can deduct the full value of all their investment from that year's taxable profits. If the super deduction was allowed to end without a replacement, we would have fallen down the international league tables on tax competitiveness and damaged growth. As a Conservative, I could not allow that to happen. So today I can announce we will introduce a new policy of full capital expensing for the next 3 years, with an intention to make it permanent as soon as we can responsibly do so. That means that every single pound a company invests in IT equipment, plant or machinery can be deducted in full and immediately from taxable profits. It is a corporation tax cut worth an average of £9 billion a year for every year that it's in place. And its impact on the economy will be huge. The OBR says it will increase in business investment by 3% for every year it's in place. This decision makes us the only major European country with full expensing and gives us the joint most generous capital allowance regime of any advanced economy. Madam Deputy Speaker, I understand the party opposite is reviewing business taxes. Let me save them the bother. They put them up, we cut them. I also want to make our taxes more competitive in our life science and creative industries sectors. In the autumn, I said I'd return with a more robust R&D tax credit scheme for smaller research-intensive companies. So today, I'm introducing an enhanced credit, which means that if a qualifying small or medium-sized business spends 40% or more of their total expenditure on R&D, they'll be able to claim a credit worth £27 for every £100 they spend. That means an eligible cancer drug company spending £2 million on research and development will receive over £500,000 to help them develop breakthrough treatments. It's a £1.8 billion package of support, helping 20,000 cutting-edge companies who day by day are turning Britain into a science superpower. And this government's audio-visual tax reliefs have helped make our film and TV industry the biggest in Europe. Only last month, Pinewood announced an expansion which will bring another 8,000 jobs to the UK. To give even more momentum to this critical sector, I'll introduce an expenditure credit with a rate of 34% for film, high-end television and video games, and 39% for the animation and children's TV sectors. I'll maintain the qualifying threshold for high-end television at £1 million. And because our theatres, orchestras and museums do such a brilliant job at attracting tourists to London and the UK, I'll extend for another 2 years their current 45% and 50% reliefs. Madam Deputy Speaker, an enterprise economy needs low taxes, but it also needs cheap and reliable energy. We have already announced billions of support to help businesses reduce their energy bills through the Energy Bills Relief Scheme and the Energy Bills Discount Scheme. We've appointed Dame Alison Rose, Chief Executive of NatWest, to co-chair our National Energy Efficiency Task Force and help deliver our national ambition to reduce energy use by 15%. And to support her efforts, I'll extend the Climate Change Agreement Scheme for 2 years to allow eligible businesses £600 million of tax relief on energy efficiency measures. But the long-term solution is not subsidy, but security. That means investing in domestic sources of energy that fall outside Putin or any autocrat's control. We are world leaders in renewable energy, so today I want to develop another plank of our green economy, carbon capture, usage and storage. I'm allocating up to £20 billion of support for the early development of CCUS, starting with projects from our East Coast to Merseyside to North Wales, paving the way for CCUS everywhere across the UK as we approach 2050. That will support up to 50,000 jobs, attract private sector investment, and help capture 20 to 30 million tonnes of CO2 per year by 2030. We have increased the proportion of electricity generated from renewables from under 10% when we came into office to nearly 40%. But because the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine, even under the Conservatives, Madam Deputy Speaker, we will need another critical source of cheap and reliable energy, and that is nuclear. Now, there have been no more powerful advocates for this than the Honourable Member for Innismon, Copeland, Hartlepool and Workington. They rightly say that increasing nuclear capacity is vital to meet our net zero obligations. So to encourage private sector investment into our nuclear programme, I today confirm that, subject to consultation, nuclear power will be classed as environmentally sustainable in our green taxonomy. That will give it access to the same investment incentives as renewable energy. And alongside that will come more public investment. In the autumn statement, I announced the first state-financed investment in nuclear for a generation, a £700 million investment in Sizewell C. Today, I can announce two further commitments to deliver our nuclear ambitions. Firstly, following representations from our energetic Energy Security Secretary, I am announcing the launch of Great British Nuclear, which will bring down costs and provide opportunities across the nuclear supply chain to help provide 1/4 of our electricity by 2050. And secondly, it's so good to hear Labour in favour of nuclear energy. Just a shame they never did any. And secondly, I'm launching the first competition for small modular reactors. It will be completed by the end of this year, and if demonstrated as viable, we will co-fund this exciting new technology. Finally, under the E of enterprise, Madam Deputy Speaker, I come to our innovation economy, a central area of national competitive advantage for the United Kingdom. Over the weekend, I worked night and day with the Prime Minister and the Governor of Bank of England to protect the deposits of thousands of our most cutting-edge companies. We successfully secured the sale of the UK arm of Silicon Valley Bank to HSBC, so the future of those companies is now safe in the hands of Europe's biggest and one of its most creditworthy banks. But those events show that we need to build a larger, more diverse financing system where the benefits of investment in high-growth firms are available to more investors. So I will return in the autumn statement with a plan to deliver that. It will include measures to unlock productive investment from defined contribution pension funds and other sources, make the London Stock Exchange a more attractive place to list, and complete our response to the challenges created by the US Inflation Reduction Act. However, when it comes to our innovation industries, there are two areas I want to make progress on today. Nigel Lawson made the City of London one of the world's top financial centres by competitive deregulation. With our Brexit autonomy, we can do the same for our high-growth sectors. So today I want to reform the regulations around medicines and medical technologies. We are lucky with the MHRA to have one of the most respected drugs regulators in the world, indeed the very first anywhere to licence a COVID vaccine. From 2024, they will move to a different model, which will allow rapid, often near automatic sign-off for medicines and technologies already approved by trusted regulators in other parts of the world, such as the United States, Europe and Japan. At the same time, they will set up a swift new approval process for the most cutting-edge medicines and devices to ensure the UK becomes a global centre for their development. And with an extra £10 million of funding over the next 2 years, they will put in place the quickest, simplest regulatory approval in the world for companies seeking rapid market access. We are proud of the life science sector, which received more inward investment than any in Europe last year. Today's change will make the UK an even more exciting place to invest. using our Brexit freedoms and speeding up access for NHS patients to the very newest drugs. Today, with our talented Science, Innovation and Technology Secretary, I also take measures to strengthen our position in artificial intelligence, where the UK hosts 1/3 of all European companies. I'm accepting all 9 of the digital technology recommendations made by Sir Patrick Vallance in the review I asked him to do in the autumn statement. That means I can report to the House that we will launch an AI sandbox to trial new, faster approaches to help innovators get cutting-edge products to market. We'll work at pace with the Intellectual Property Office to provide clarity on IP rules so that generative AI companies can access the material they need. And we'll ask Sir Patrick's successor, Dame Angela McLean, to report before the summer on options around the growth duty for regulators. Because AI needs computing horsepower, I today commit around £900 million of funding to implement the recommendations of the Independent Future of Compute review for an exascale computer. The power needed by AI's complex algorithms can also be provided by quantum computing. So today we'll publish a quantum strategy which will set out our vision to be a world-leading quantum-enabled economy by 2033 with a research and innovation programme totalling £2.5 billion. I also want to encourage the best AI research to happen in the UK, so we'll award a prize of £1 million every year for the next 10 years to the person or team that does the most groundbreaking British AI research. The world's first stored program computer was built at the University of Manchester in 1948 and was known as the Manchester Baby. 75 years on, the baby has grown up, so I will call this new National AI Award the Manchester Prize in its honour. Madam Deputy Speaker, we want the UK to be the best place in Europe for companies to locate, invest and grow. So today's enterprise measures strengthen our technology and life science sectors, invest in energy security, and for 3 years, but I hope permanently, cut corporation tax by £9 billion a year to give us the best investment incentives of any advanced economy. An enterprise economy can only grow if it can hire the people it needs. Which brings me to my third pillar, after everywhere and enterprise. I said it was a growth budget, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we are talking about the E of employment. I'm going to talk about a difficult topic for the party opposite now, because Brexit was a decision by the British people to change our economic model. In that historic vote, our country decided to move from a model based on unlimited low-skill migration to one based on high wages and high skills. Today, we show how we will deliver that with a major set of reforms. The OBR say it is the biggest positive supply-side intervention they have ever recognised in their forecast. We have around 1 million vacancies in the economy. But excluding students, there are over 7 million adults of working age who are not in work. That's a potential pool of 7 people for every vacancy. Conservatives believe work is a virtue. We agree with the road haulage king Eddie Stobart, who said the only place success comes before work is the dictionary. So today I bring forward reforms to remove the barriers that stop people who want to from working. And I start with over 2 million people who are inactive due to a disability or long-term sickness. Thanks to the reforms courageously introduced by the Right Honourable Member for Chingford and Woodford Green, the number of disabled people in work has risen by 2 million since 2013. But even after that, we could fill half the vacancies in the economy with people who say they would like to work despite being inactive due to sickness or disability, with Zoom, Teams and new working models that make it easier to work from home This is possible now more than ever. So for that reason, the ever-diligent Work and Pensions Secretary today takes the next step in his groundbreaking work on tackling economic inactivity. I thank him for that, and today we publish a white paper on disability benefits reform. It is the biggest change to our welfare system in a decade. His plans will abolish the work capability assessment in Great Britain and separate benefit entitlement from an individual's ability to work. As a result, disabled benefit claimants will always be able to seek work without fear of losing financial support. Today, I'm going further by announcing that in England and Wales, after listening to representations from the Centre for Social Justice and others, we will fund a new programme called Universal Support. This is a new voluntary employment scheme for disabled people where the government will spend up to £4,000 a person to help them find appropriate jobs and put in place the support they need. It will fund 50,000 places every single year. We also want to help those who are forced to leave work because of a health condition such as a back pain or a mental health issue. We should give them support before they end up leaving their job. So working with our Health Secretary, I'm announcing a £400 million plan to increase the availability of mental health and musculoskeletal resources and expand the individual placement and support scheme. And because occupational health provided by employers has a key role to play, I'll also bring forward 2 new consultations on how to improve its availability and double the funding for the small company subsidy pilot. There's another group that deserve particular attention, which is children in care. They too should be given all possible help to make a normal working life possible when they reach adulthood. Often they depend on foster families who do a brilliant job. So today I'm nearly doubling the qualifying care relief threshold to £18,140, which will give a tax cut to a qualifying carer worth an average of £450 a year. I'll also increase the funding we provide to the Staying Close programme by 50% to help more care leavers into employment, and I'll support young people with special educational needs and disabilities with a £3 million pilot expansion of the Department for Education's supported internship programme to help those people transition from education into the workplace. Madam Deputy Speaker, no civilised society can ignore the contribution that can be made by those with challenging family circumstances, a long-term illness or a disability. So today we remove the barriers we can with reforms that strengthen our society as well as strengthening our economy. The next set of employment reforms affects those on universal credit without a health condition who are looking for work or on low earnings. There are more than 2 million job seekers in this group, more than enough to fill every vacancy in the economy. Independence is always better than dependence, which is why a Conservative government believes with some exceptions, Madam Deputy Speaker. Independence is always better than dependence, which is why a Conservative government believes those who can work should. So sanctions will be applied more rigorously to those who fail to meet strict work search requirements or choose not to take up a reasonable job offer. And for those working low hours, we will increase the administrative earnings threshold from the equivalent of 15 hours to 18 hours at national living wage for an individual claimant, meaning that anyone working below this level will receive more work coach support alongside a more intensive conditionality regime. The next group of workers I want to support are those aged over 50. My younger officials have termed these people older workers, although as a 56-year-old myself, I prefer the term experienced. Fully 3.5 million people of pre-retirement age over 50 are not part of the labour force, an increase of 320,000 since before the pandemic. We now have the 23rd highest inactivity rate for over 55s in the OECD. If we matched the rate of Sweden, we would add more than 1 million people to our national labour force. Madam Deputy Speaker, I say this not to flatter you, but older people are the most skilled and experienced people we have. No country can thrive. No country can thrive if it turns its back on such a wealth of talent and ability. But for too many, turning 50 is a moment of anxiety about the cliff edge of retirement, rather than a moment of anticipation about another 2 decades of fulfilment. I know this, Madam Deputy Speaker, myself. After I turned 50, I was relegated to the backbenches and planned for a quiet life, but instead I decided to set an example by embarking on a new career in finance. So today I take 3 steps to make it easier for those who wish to. It's going well, thank you. And today I take 3 steps to make it easier for those who wish to work longer. First, we will increase the number of people who get the best possible financial, health and career guidance ahead of retirement by enhancing the DWP's excellent midlife MOT strategy. They will also increase by 5-fold the number of 50-plus universal credits who receive midlife MOTs from 8,000 to 40,000 a year. Second, with my right honourable friend, the Education Secretary, who has a deep personal commitment to this area, will introduce a new kind of apprenticeship targeted at the over 50s who want to return to work. They will be called returnerships and operate alongside skills boot camps and sector-based work academies. They'll bring together our existing skills programmes to make them more appealing for older workers, focusing on flexibility and previous experience to reduce training length. Finally, I have listened to the concerns of many senior NHS clinicians who say unpredictable pension tax charges are making them leave the NHS just when they are needed the most. The NHS is our biggest employer, and we will shortly publish a long-term workforce plan that I promised in the autumn statement. But ahead of that, I don't want any doctor to retire early because of the way pension taxes work. It's an issue I've discussed not just with the current Health Secretary, but a former Health Secretary who kindly took a break from WhatsApping his colleagues to consider it. As Chancellor, I have realised the issue goes wider than doctors. No one should be pushed out of the workforce for tax reasons. So today I will increase the pension's annual tax-free allowance by 50%, from 40,000 to 60,000. Some have also asked me to increase the lifetime allowance from its £1 million limit. But I've decided not to do that. Instead, I will go further and abolish the lifetime allowance altogether. It is a pension tax reform that will stop over 80% of NHS doctors from receiving a tax charge, incentivise our most experienced and productive workers to stay in work for longer, and simplify our tax system, taking thousands of people out of the complexity.
Order. Just because the Chancellor of the Exchequer is either unpopular or popular, we still have to keep the noise down because we still have to hear what he has to say. He has more to say. Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is a comprehensive plan to remove the barriers to work facing those on benefits, those with health conditions and older workers. That is the E of the employment pillar of today's growth budget, which brings me to the final pillar of our growth plan. After employment, enterprise and everywhere, I turn to the E of education. Over more than a decade, this Conservative government has driven improvement in our education system. We've risen by nearly 10 places in the international league tables for English and maths since 2015 alone. In the autumn statement, I built on this programme with an extra £2.3 billion annual investment to our schools. We're reviewing our approach to skills with Sir Michael Barber. We set out our plans to transform lifelong learning with a new lifelong loan entitlement. And my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, announced plans to make maths compulsory till 18. But today I want to address an issue in our education system that is bad for children and damaging for the economy. It's an issue that starts even before a child enters the gates of a school. Today I want to reform our childcare system. We have one of the most expensive systems in the world. Almost half of non-working mothers say they would prefer to work if they could arrange suitable childcare. For many women, a career break becomes a career end. Our female participation rate is higher than average for OECD economies, but we trail top performers like Denmark and the Netherlands. If we match Dutch levels of participation, there would be more than 1 million additional women working. And we can do that. So today I announce a series of reforms that start that journey. I begin with the supply of childcare. We've seen a significant decline in childminders over recent years, down 9% in England in just 1 year. But childminders are a vital way to deliver affordable and flexible care, and we need more of them. So I've listened to representations from my honourable friend from Stroud and decided to address this by piloting incentive payments of £600 for childminders who sign up to the profession, rising to £1,200 for those who join through an agency. I've also heard many concerns about cost pressures facing the sector. We know this is making it hard to hire staff and raising prices for parents, with around 2/3 of childcare providers increasing fees last year alone. So we'll increase the funding paid to nurseries providing free childcare under the Hours offer by £204 million from this September, rising to £288 million next year. That's an average of a 30% increase in the 2-year-old rate this year, just as the sector has requested. I will also offer providers more flexibility in how they operate in line with other parts of the UK. So alongside that additional funding, we will change minimum staff to child ratios from 1:4 to 1:5 for 2-year-olds in England, as happens in Scotland, although the new ratios will remain optional with no obligation on either childminders or parents to adopt them. I want to help the 700,000 parents on universal credit who, until the reforms I announced today, had limited requirements to look for work. Many remain out of work because they cannot afford the upfront payment necessary to access subsidised childcare. So for any parents who are moving into work or want to increase their hours, we will pay the childcare costs up front. And we will increase the maximum they can claim to £951 for one child and £1,630 for 2 children, an increase of almost 50%. I turn now to parents of school-age children who often face barriers to working because of the limited availability of wraparound care. 1/3 of primary schools do not offer childcare at both ends of the school day, even though for many people a job requires it to be available before and after school. To address this, we'll fund schools and local authorities to increase the supply of wraparound care so all school-age parents can drop their children off between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And our ambition is that all schools will start to offer a full wraparound offer, either on their own or in partnership with other schools, by September 2026. Madam Deputy Speaker, today's childcare reforms will increase the availability of childcare, reduce costs and increase the number of parents able to use it. Taken together with earlier Conservative reforms, they amount to the most significant improvements to childcare provision in a decade. But if we really want to remove the barriers to work, we need to go further for parents who have a child under 3. For them, childcare remains just too expensive. In 2010, there was barely any free childcare for under 5s. A Conservative-led government changed that with free childcare for 3- and 4-year-olds in England. It was a landmark reform, but not a complete one. I don't want any parent with a child under 5 to be prevented from working if they want to, because it's damaging to our economy and unfair mainly to women. So today I announce that in eligible households where all adults are working at least 16 hours, we will introduce 30 hours of free childcare, not just for 3- and 4-year-olds, but for every single child over the age of 9 months. The 30-hour offer will now start from the moment maternity or paternity leave ends. It's a package worth, on average, £6,500 every year for a family with a 2-year-old child using 35 hours of childcare every week, and reduces their childcare costs by nearly 60%. Because it is such a large reform, we will introduce it in stages to ensure there is enough supply in the market. Working parents of 2-year-olds will be able to access 15 hours of free care from April 2024, helping around 500,000 parents. From September 24, that 15 hours will be extended to all children from 9 months up, meaning a total of nearly 1 million parents will be eligible. And from September 25, every single working parent of under 5s will have access to 30 hours free childcare per week. Madam Deputy Speaker.
Mr. Perkins, stop it.
Madam Deputy Speaker, today we complete a landmark Conservative reform. We help the economy, transform the lives of thousands of women and build a childcare system comparable to the best. A major early years reform for our education system, the E of education, alongside the 3 other pillars of our growth plan: enterprise, employment and everywhere. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, in November we delivered stability. Today it's growth. We tackle the 2 biggest barriers that stop businesses growing: investment incentives and labour supply. The best investment incentives in Europe, the biggest ever employment package, for disabled people more help, for older people barriers removed, for families feeling the pinch, fuel duty frozen, beer duty cut, energy bills capped, and for parents 30 hours of free childcare for all under 5s. Today we build for the future, with inflation down, debt falling and growth up. The declinists are wrong and the optimists are right. We stick to the plan because the plan is working, and I commend this statement to the House.
OK, the plan is working, the Chancellor says. An absolutely packed statement, clearly being rewarded by his MPs there. We're just waiting for the Leader of the Opposition, of course, has not had sight of the Chancellor's statement, has to really think on his feet here. Chancellor making reference to the Deputy Speaker's age. That wasn't terribly popular, one suspects, in the chamber. A few digs at the likes of Matt Hancock, but basically a packed speech, which we will come on to assess in just a moment, once we've heard what the Leader of the Opposition has to say in response to it. But in essence, the Chancellor is saying, look, the plan is working, the declinists are wrong, lots and lots of news out of it, inflation plummeting, that's very good news. Avoiding a technical recession, also very good news for all of us, but growth weakening after that in the latter part of the period. Forecast, which is potentially a problem, which we can discuss with Robert and Joel, but massive measures, big childcare measures, although that's going to be phased in. That may not be hugely popular for those who've been led to expect it was going to be immediate. Freezing the fuel duty, that's £6 billion, massive tax breaks for business, 11 billion quid of that. Some changes we didn't expect. And an enormous, a truly colossal tax break to the highest earners, increasing the amount you can save tax-free every year and abolishing the limit to the lifetime allowance. That's going to be a huge story as well. We didn't expect that. We thought they were going to raise the limit of the lifetime allowance. but in fact he's abolished it. So that is a surprise and quite a big development in the round. Other thing to mention, just as we come out of it, spending looks very, very tight after the election in forecast terms. What that means in reality, given that we already know that it's going to rise a lot in terms of childcare costs and defence, everything else is going to be very, very tight. So I think that's going to be a big talking point as we go through today and in future days. Because I think we're looking at spending of a 1% rise after the election, and that is very, very tight indeed. In reality, it means that in all other departments, we're looking at a period of austerity. He spoke for an hour or so. It's a long way short of the record. That's William Gladstone, if you're wondering. 1853, 4 hours, 45 minutes. So we've been spared that, but there was a lot in it. Here we go. Keir Starmer, Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I say it's good to see you back in the chair?
Looking radiant.
So for all the hype, a budget for growth that downgrades the growth forecast. His opening boast was that things aren't quite as bad now as they were in October last year after the kamikaze budget. And the more that he pretends everything is fine, the more he shows just how out of touch they are. After 13 years of his government, our economy needed major surgery. But like millions across our country, this budget leaves us stuck in the waiting room with only a sticking plaster to hand. A country set on a path of managed decline, falling behind our competitors, the sick man of Europe once again. This was a day for ambition, for bringing us together with purpose and intent, for unlocking the pride that is in every community, matching their belief in the possibilities of the future. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, after today, we know the Tory cupboard is as bare as the salad aisle in our supermarket. The lettuces may be out, but the turnips are in. A hopelessly divided party caught between a rock of decline and a hard place of their own economic recklessness, dressing up stagnation as stability as their expiry date looms ever closer. And the figures published today spell it out. A year of stagnation, growth non-existent. According to the IMF, the worst performing country in the G7 this year. A prediction today confirmed by the OBR, and growth downgraded in years to come. This is a failure you can measure not just in the figures, but in the empty pockets of working people right across the country. 13 years without wage growth. 13 years no better off. 13 years stuck in a doom loop of lower growth, higher taxes and broken public services. Madam Speaker, our OBR makes clear today things don't look any better in the long run.
No.
A broken labour market holding back our prospects. 7 million on the NHS waiting lists. Ill health and disability on the rise. And the consequences, as we've just heard, deferred to the future. The classic short-term sticking plaster cycle. Decisions cynically ducked today, pain for working people tomorrow. It doesn't have to be like this. Britain has enormous potential. On science, innovation, technology, we should be leading, not lagging. We need an industrial strategy that removes barriers to investment. And the announcements today are nowhere near the mark. The lowest investment in the G7, that's their record. All our competitors know this. They're gearing up for an almighty race for the opportunities of tomorrow. And we've got to be on the start line, not back in the changing room, tying our laces. Now, he mentioned the war in Ukraine. And of course, on this side of the House, we stand with Ukraine and we stand with the government's response to Putin's brutality.
OK, the leader of the opposition there saying lettuces are out, turnips are in, proving that his jokes are every bit as bad as the Chancellor's. More substantially, though, focusing in on the relatively anemic growth projections, still a big talking point. We will take a quick break. When we come back, Anushka will take us through the key points and explain what it all means, and we'll get more analysis from Joel and Robert on everything we've just heard. We'll see you in just a few moments.
Mini. Magnum Mini Almond. The Magnum classics you love, but mini. Magnum Mini always fits.
I've been traveling through memories of my life, learning something new each and every time.
Fame, the new feminine fragrance by Paco Rabanne.
Law Barista Sublime, a new compact coffee machine, a world of exceptional coffee creations. Law Barista, infinite creations, infinite pleasure.
Did you know your favourite food and drinks may be eating your enamel, causing it to weaken in the long term? Acidic foods can cause enamel loss, which can lead to sensitivity and yellowing. Pronamel helps protect teeth against enamel loss. For strong, healthy teeth, Pronamel.
Morning delivery with one substitution. Heinz beans.
But beans means...
We all know what beans means.
Club card accepted. Club card accepted. Club card accepted.
Feel the power to lower prices with Tesco Club Card.
We've got you covered.
L'Oréal Paris presents Infallible 32-hour matte cover. Get instant full matte coverage that resists the day. Transfer proof, shine proof. With 4% niacinamide, it helps even skin tone. New matte cover foundation by L'Oréal Paris.
We're worth it.
Did you know? By switching to cooler water, you can save up to 50% of the energy used when washing up. That's why Fairy Max Power's special formula cuts through tough, greasy challenges brilliantly. Even in cooler water, for a sparkling clean. So wash cooler. It's a small change that can have a big impact. Fairy Max Power. Drop the hot and save up to 50% of the energy when washing up.
Don't miss the Lotto quadruple rollover this Wednesday. It could be you. Play on app. Lotto from the National Lottery.
This is Sky Glass.
Why would I get Sky Glass and not a smart TV?
Because it's smarter.
Really?
Yeah, really. It's a 4K TV with a built-in high-spec soundbar, and you can find any show on any app.
Yeah, but I can't have a Sky Dish.
You don't need one. It all works over your Wi-Fi.
That is pricey.
Well, you get the actual Sky Glass TV, Sky Entertainment and Netflix for £40 a month. And right now, it's just £14 a month for the first 3 months.
That is smart.
No, it's smarter. Sky Glass. Smarter than a smart TV.
OK, welcome back. You are watching an ITV News special, The Chancellor's Budget. In the last few minutes, Jeremy Hunt has revealed his budget for growth, as he called it, with plans including a freeze on both fuel duty and the price of a pint of beer, as well as a massive tax reform on pensions. Well, Anushka has been going through all the details to talk us through the most significant bits out of what the Chancellor has said. Anushka.
Thank you, Tom. Let's start with inflation and that huge drop from 10.7% at the end of last year to 2.9% by the end of 2023. So not just halved, cut by more than 2/3. The Chancellor made the point that this could help solve public sector pay deals. Now, on economic growth, he was able to tell Parliament that we will not enter a technical recession this year, with growth rising by 1.8%, 2.5%, 2.1% and then 1.9% in 2027. Now, when the Chancellor said debt would also be lower then, thanks to lower wholesale energy prices, he was able to extend the £2,500 energy price guarantee until June, as expected. There was also that big push on getting people back into work, including raising the annual tax-free allowance on pensions to £60,000. But as you heard, he totally abolished the lifetime allowance. That is a lot of money for wealthy older people and some debate over whether it will mean people do work for longer. We also had that big childcare package, including new ratios and 30 free hours extending to children over 9 months. There was also a big drive to get more disabled people back into work, which could be controversial, and tougher benefit sanctions. People working up to 18 hours will get more support, but will also face losing benefits if they don't look for extra work. That is up from 15 hours. That could hit single parents. On business, corporation tax not mentioned, so going up as predicted, but full expensing, allowing businesses to claw back 100% on investments into things like IT and machineries. And then duties. Fuel duty frozen for a year, with last year's 5% cut kept in place. And then what he called the Brexit pubs guarantee. Hunt said that leaving the EU had let him increase draft relief, so duties on a beer in the pub can be up to 11p less than in supermarkets. He said he was freezing duties on a pint, but sadly not on a glass of wine.
OK, Anushka, thanks very much. Joel, let's come to you. So many talking points. What are you most focused on?
Well, I mean, I think the big picture here is that the OBR has taken a very positive view, actually, of the changing fortunes of the economy. They think the downturn will be shorter and shallower. The prediction of a recession, Tom, has gone. In the medium term, from 2025 onwards, they think the growth is going to be hovering around 2% a year. We take that even in normal times. The deficit and debt will be lower as a result. That gives him some room for manoeuvre. He's saving. He's got about £20 billion less of borrowing this year and next. He's spending 2/3 of that. He's using that money to support household energy bills, business investment, that very eye-catching announcement on the sort of temporary capital expensing receipts that businesses will benefit from, and to sort of coax people back into the labour market, all the childcare expenses. Now, the OBR, the independent government's own forecaster, takes the view that actually this reform is going to be extremely effective. It's going to help to lower inflation. It will raise employment and economic growth in the medium term. Here's the catch here, though, Tom. The Chancellor is meeting his own self-imposed forecast on debt by the narrowest of margins in 5 years out.
OK, let's go to Robert. Robert, your conclusion after everything you've heard.
So this is undoubtedly an ambitious programme to try and get the growth rate of the economy up. We haven't seen ever such sweeping reforms and incentives to get more people into work. And just on that one point, this represents a massive cultural shift by the Tory party over the last 25 years. If you remember, 25 years ago, it was all about support for families and encouraging women in particular to stay at home. Now the presumption of this Tory government is everybody should work, including big incentives to try and get more disabled people to work. And just finally on Joel's point about how difficult it is for the government potentially to meet those fiscal targets, which they meet by the narrowest of margins. That is why the most expensive element of this budget, which is this massive tax incentive to businesses, £10 billion a year to encourage them to invest, is at the moment only lasting for 3 years, because if they rolled it over, they would actually miss their own rules on balancing the books. That said, the Chancellor says that he wants that tax incentive to become permanent. He's hoping that the economy does better, and the reason for that is business says these incentives only really work if they know they are there forever.
OK, Robert, thank you very much indeed. There are 6 million talking points. Thankfully, we have our service ITVX. We're all about to record some analysis. It'll be on there. Do come and watch and catch up in later programmes. But for now, thank you very much for being with us. See you later on.